Welcome to Manifest with the Chakras. My name is Supriya Prasad. Welcome, everybody, to the live podcast. This is the podcast show where we talk about how each chakra works within your body and in your life, and how you can manifest with these chakras. Today I have a very special guest, and her name is Alina Nikishina. Is that how you say your last name, Nikishina?
Nikishina.
Nikishina.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Alina here specializes in subconscious change and helps conscious leaders and creative souls transform self-sabotage, fear, and inner criticism into impact, success, and well-being. Part of what makes her unique is a method called core transformation, which we will get into today. This gentle process allows us to work with the different parts of ourselves stuck in unwanted behavior patterns and create profound change without struggling or relying on willpower. So, thank you so much for joining us, Alina.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, core transformation. I know we just talked about it right here, but I would like to get into a little bit of a deeper dive into what you do with core transformation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, as you kind of mentioned in your lovely introduction, thank you, is that it's a gentle process that allows us to be really kind to ourselves as we are acknowledging different parts of ourselves, right? So, you, the person listening or watching this, you may have found yourself using this kind of language of like, a part of me wants to do this and another part of me doesn't want to do that, or a part of me thinks this, and another part of me is like, what are you talking about, right? It's like this internal struggle that we have sometimes, which, and sometimes it's just like, oh, I have different ideas, right? Which is fine. And other times it kind of prevents us from moving forward on our goals or even manifesting, right? It's like, I want to manifest, I don't know, financial abundance, right? And then another part of me thinks that I don't deserve it, or that it's going to be hard, or that it's going to take a long time, right?
Yeah.
So this process, core transformation, allows us to practically work with these different kind of internal ideas that we have, and basically acknowledge them as like parts, and take them through a process which actually helps them get to what they want at the core level, which is why it's called core transformation. And once they kind of reach what they want at their core level, what people usually find is that whatever challenge they were experiencing before kind of becomes either a non-issue, or they just begin to see things in a different way, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of have, people say, you're the creator of your own reality, right?
Mhm.
And to me, reality is perception.
Yeah.
So if we can change our perception of things, our attitude towards things, our feelings towards things, our beliefs, then we can change our reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a core transformation session with you, and gosh, and I wanted, there was like a belief that I had. I believe it was getting off like the phone after
Hmm.
hours. And I was surprised. I was so surprised with how deep we got into each. I think it was like what, 5 or 6 levels that we went into
Yep.
of different change. It was absolutely and then we found out it was like, you have to just be, you have to be in the present, I think, at the end of the day, and be in love and spirit. And that was actually really profound. I'm like, oh my God, like, there was like a different levels. Like, I mean, I wanted a level of comfort. I wanted a level of, you know, as we went into this, I don't know. What do you want to say it? I don't want to say it's meditation was not, because I don't think it's meditation. It's not trance either. Like, what what would you call
Yeah. I mean, people typically feel very relaxed as they are going through the process, and I think it's just because, like you said, they're working on deep levels of themselves. And as you were saying, right, each of your parts that we worked with, they came to this like state of being, right? And they
Mhm.
kind of got there naturally. It's not like, okay, now step into love, right? And like, what would that be like? It kind of just progressed there naturally. And I think it's because, um, you know, people ask like, okay, so you want money or you want a relationship or something like that, right? And what do you want? What is it that you really want through that? What are you trying to achieve? And as you were saying,
Mm,
like I wanted a level of security and comfort. I wanted to be seen or acknowledged, right? I wanted
yeah,
people to like me or something like that. And
yeah.
beyond that, there's actually even deeper layers, which are normally things that you can have. Well, they're not even things, they're just being states, regardless of your circumstances in your life. And how awesome would it be to have to not have your external circumstances yet, right? Because like in manifestation, we don't get to decide the timeline, right? The timeline is when you manifest is like the best time for that to happen for you, right? Because we have no idea what's happening in the big picture of like maybe it's not the right time and the universe is like I'm going to wait for the perfect moment, right? But in the meantime, how do we find states of peace, wholeness, fulfillment and presence even though we don't have that thing that we want yet, right? So to
Yeah.
me, this method is like gold for creating those states, actually showing you that you can have those states regardless of the fact that you don't have the thing you want yet in your physical reality.
Yeah, like, gosh, I mean, what you put me when you put me in through those stages and into, we can call it a trance if we want to, or
Yeah, sure, yeah.
subconscious trance. Um, it was it was incredibly powerful to see, to go into that state of mind and see, okay, what part does this show up in?
Yeah.
And seeing where am I hurting in this area. So, and of course it was very simple. Like the thing that I wanted to get away was like, it was very simple, but it was like so deep at the same time. It was so deep. And when you put me into those trances, I was like, oh my God, I want the love of my mother. I want comfort. And I get why you say now to take something small because of how deep we actually go into that trance state. So I would say, like, I mean, when we're going back into the chakras, and I mean, I definitely feel like when we're talking about things like survival and I want to say ego too, survival and ego and things like that, we talk about the sacral and the root quite a bit when we're talking about like these core transformations. You said like too that you actually did some transformation work on beliefs like money, which
Yeah.
absolutely deal with the root chakra. So what typically comes up? And you don't have to go into like super specifics with clients and everything, but what do you find typically comes up in these sessions?
Oh, okay. Just
With,
with what kind of things people come to
yeah,
this
with
come
money, with something like money.
with something like money? Well, I'll tell you my personal journey.
Okay, cool.
So so, as a child, I grew up believing that I needed to be really independent with my money. It's like I clearly remember asking my parents for something, and they were like, "When you get older and you have your own job and your own money, then you can have the thing." And as adults or as children, we don't understand how to reason properly. We don't. That was just a basic statement that they said. They were like, "Well, don't have the money. When you have the money, you can get it." But I took it to mean that I basically needed to be independent um, at all costs. So it's interesting how I basically set it up that way, right? To where I went to school, like got top grades, went and got a job as an accountant. I was a CPA for over a decade because I knew, not because I was like passionate about the work necessarily, but I knew that if I was to major something that I would be good at and something that is needed in society, then I would always have a job. And accountants always have a job. They're needed
Right.
everywhere. And so, yeah, I was very successful in my career. I always had a stable paycheck. I always was able to kind of like do whatever I wanted, right? Like, cool. So, you want to go on this vacation? Great. You want to live here? Great. And that, that satisfied those parts of myself that I formed as a young child that were like, you need to do this. Okay. So, in 2018, my life changed and I left my accounting career. I didn't think I would leave my accounting career, but I did. And I started a startup business with some business partners. And at that time, I didn't get paid for like, months in the beginning because we just were starting out before we got some seed money, this kind of stuff. And yeah, going from like a 6-figure paycheck down to nothing with just my savings slowly draining away. I mean, that was like, oh my God, I mean, fine, I have the savings, but what happens when I run out of savings? Then I'll have to depend on people. And like, and when you're starting a business, right? So I started that startup, I ended up leaving. So I ended up restarting my career as a coach. So that took some time. And it's like relying on someone else, like asking my husband to help support us was like the biggest sense of failure to that part of me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you have failed. You are nothing. Like, you are not worthy. And I know that sounds really harsh and maybe dramatic, but that's how it felt to my inner experience. And it's like, I'm grateful. I was grateful that, I have this support because some people don't have support. They have to go get multiple jobs to support themselves while they're ramping up a business. I have the support and I'm extremely grateful. And it's like I was not allowing myself to accept or receive. Do you know what I mean? And then the question becomes like, where else am I not allowing myself to receive? I'm sure you could talk to that.
Yeah. Receiving energy is all about the divine feminine energy. So that's all sacral. That's
Mhm.
like what I would call a blocked sacral, not allowing to receive, or an
Well,
imbalanced.
there you
Yeah.
go. And it's like the feeling, Supriya, was like the internal dialogue was something to the tune of like, I can't be okay in the world. I can't be safe in the world until I am financially independent. Like,
Mm.
until I can carry my own weight, I can't be free.
Mm.
And it's like that's not, when you unpack that statement, of course it's not true. Of course I can be free. My
Yeah.
financial independence is not tied to that, but that's not the connection that was made in my subconscious mind when I was a child that I carried into adulthood. And I'll tell you that I've been working with these parts of myself through the core transformation method, and it's been extremely helpful. Like, I can actually let go and allow people to like help me, and I don't have to feel this giant like 1,000-pound elephant sitting on my chest, like of pressure or guilt or yeah. And I can't. It's hard to come to those conclusions on a mental logical level when people are like, well, just stop it, just let people help you, stop
Yeah.
being so difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Stop being so difficult. Stop. I think the one thing that I've actually learned about money recently is that you have to allow money to come to you in every which way. Because I
Yeah,
mean, every time when I grew up, like, it's only money. You can only be successful one way. That's what I was told. You
me
can only
too.
be successful one way. And yeah, I mean, I grew up under a home where it was like, you go to job, you get a career, you go to college, you get your master's or
Yep.
doctorate or whatever, and then you get a high paying job and you can take care of your family and kids. Take care of your family and kids. And but for me it was like, okay, go to school, get a job, but not a job that would be that would intimidate your husband. That would intimidate the husband. Don't get a job that would be higher paying than him, because he needs to take care of you, you see. So yeah, so that was actually also really hard to hear, and I'm just like, why can't I be a boss woman? Why can't I be a boss? And like, why can't I? So challenging those things, and challenging the norm, and saying like, okay, so yeah, I can make money from other ways, but reprogramming myself to think that money can come from every single place you want it to has been much more of a challenge to me. So yeah,
Yeah.
like, how did you, well, personally, how did you reprogram those beliefs with core transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I just started by working with these different parts. Like, I'm when we do core transformation, we can work on either a behavior level, so something that you're noticing yourself doing, like having a reaction or a habit or something like that. You can work with a feeling, like if you're like not sure even how to label it, you could say just this, I don't know, weird pokey feeling in my stomach, right? It's not,
Mhm.
you don't even have to have a label for it. Or you can work with a thought, like an inner voice. So like this voice that always keeps telling me that I need to push harder, right? Or something like that. So I literally was like, cool. I brought myself back to the situation where I had the conversation with my husband that I needed help, right? That like he now
Right.
had to like carry more of the weight on the bills. And I was like, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? And how am I behaving? And
Mm,
it was like this whole just like I want to crawl up in a ball and like not talk about this. And I'm feeling so much guilt. I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling like I don't want to have this conversation. There's a voice that's like, you failed. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and sometimes for these bigger issues, there can be multiple parts. There usually are multiple parts because there's parts that are
mm,
trying to like um in core transformation, we don't really compartmentalize parts. Like we're not like, oh, there's three protectors and one that's trying to like create joy. It's not like that. You just kind of work with what you got. But usually there's a lot of parts that are trying to protect you. As I worked with more of these parts, I'm noticing that what they want for me is to be accepted, which makes
yeah.
sense. They want me to have a place in the world, like
Mhm.
a sense of belonging. And at the core level, it's like being being a part of source, belonging. It's not like I'm accepted into a community or group here on planet Earth. I am like I belong. Like mm, I have mm, I have a natural birthright to just exist, right?
Mm.
And be. There's nothing that I have to do or get in order to be able to just be and belong.
Just be.
Yeah, I don't need to make a certain amount of money. I don't need to have a certain job. I don't need to have a societal title in this world that people, find, oh my God, that's amazing, right? Like, I don't need to have any of that to have that inner state of being now. Not later when I'm super successful and everyone knows me and praises me. But now, because if I don't have it now, then there's a sense of unease. There's a sense that I can't be truly happy until then, right? And
Yeah.
building a business takes time.
Yep.
Creating a meaningful relationship takes time.
Mhm.
Um, Creating wealth usually takes time unless you come about like some kind of windfall, um, which is possible. But for most people, it happens over time. It doesn't happen overnight. So my question that I've been asking myself is like, why is it that I have to wait to feel successful, to feel loved, to feel like I belong, to
Mm.
feel safe, to feel fulfilled, to feel nourished at peace? Until then, I don't. And
Interesting.
This method to me helped me actually like embody that, not just someone told me, "You don't have to wait." Like, yeah, that logically makes sense, but, like, now I know inside my body because I experienced it, you know? I'm
Mm.
curious to hear from you, like, when some of your parts reached the core state, like, how was the experience
Oh
of
God. Like, okay, so something I didn't mention in my session was when I got to the core state um of the first part, when I reached the just be state, I literally saw myself floating in space. I saw myself floating in space and I'm like, "Well, what is this?" So I asked it, "What is this?" "You just being." So that's what it is. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So I literally went from like what I feel is like, from my body and from my being, and I kind of went all the way out from my outer body into space, is what it seemed like to me. And I was floating into my body, and I mean, I like literally heard nothing. I felt at peace, and
Yeah,
that's what it felt like. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's like, it's hard to explain, in a logical, cognitive way because it's an experience. It's a state of being. It's hard to explain a state of being.
Yeah, it's hard to
So,
explain. It really is because like you just feel at peace. I mean, I think like the only time you can experience that is maybe when you meditate for like 20 to 30 minutes and just focusing on your breath
yeah,
and imagining that you're at a lake or whatever, or ocean, and the water is like completely still, and the water is completely still, and everything around you is completely still. That's the best way I could describe it, actually.
I love that. Yeah, and it's different every time. A lot of my clients, and for me too, like we find that our core states are kind of similar, right? Like our parts
Right.
just like similar core states. But most of the time for me, it's like a deep meditative state. It's like a no, there's nothing else that I want. That I just want to be. I just want to exist. And sometimes, this one time, it was like in my training, a person that I just met was guiding me through, and I thought that I had already reached the core state with the part I was working with because it felt like just a really deep sense of love. It was like radiating love all around me. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. And then he was like,
Oh,
and
wow.
is there anything that you want that's deeper? And as he said that, I'm not even a visual person, but like I for some reason got this image of myself as like a tiny little speck of I don't know what energy, something like that, an orb just in vastness of continuous space that just stretches on and on and
Whoa.
on. And there's like this giant sun or something like out in the distance that I can sense. And it's like just radiating this like unconditional love to me. And I know that I'm like a part of everything that's happening. And I was like, oh my God. So I start like
Wow.
bawling in front of this man. And yeah, I'm like, oh, it's connection to source. That was the core state.
Wow.
So
That's insane.
yeah,
Yeah, like, I mean, that's kinda similar to what I saw, like, in my I was just like, "Wow, I'm like this floating body in just
yeah, yeah.
I'm floating this floating body in space, and, like, like, just being in space," and I'm like, "Wow, so this is exactly what I needed to do." I needed to, like, and then I'm like, "Wow, wow, wow, wow." So this is, like, all connected to something as simple as turning off the phone before you go to bed, and stop scrolling before you go to bed, because that was my belief. The belief was to stop scrolling um before I went to bed. And I have to say, well, I don't think I fully stopped it. I am
Yeah.
doing less of it. I am
It,
doing less of it.
that's
And
the thing, Supriya, is like it can take multiple sessions, especially for habits that we've been doing for a while, right?
Mhm.
And what I've come to notice is that it creates more freedom for us in the ability to choose. Like I wonder if when you scroll now, you have more of like, "Oh, this isn't actually what I want for myself." Like, I
That's
don't
exactly what happened. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
so you can kind of, like, have more of these, like, "Hey, do we wanna do something else that's actually nourishing for ourselves versus doom scrolling for the next 3 hours?"
Yes. That is exactly what happened. I did, like, find I was like, "Well, is this suitable for me right now?" I I was just like it was one of those things where I'm like, "Wow, like, so I am catching myself more in these moments instead of, like, subconsciously just doing it because that's what I've been used to doing." Yeah. No, you're
Exactly.
totally right, you're totally right. So what I wanna get into now is, like, sacral chakra is more about balancing. And I would also like to say it's also about our subconscious fears too. Subconscious fears and
Mm.
our sacral chakra, which is all about feeling like I always say if women are more into their masculine energy, they are more into their competitive energy. Like, I guess my question is that core transformation, like for boss women, especially, or for women who are entrepreneurs, or even if a woman who makes like a lot of money, an executive who makes a lot of
Mhm.
money doing what they do, what would you say, how does core transformation really help somebody balance out that natural masculine drive that a lot of women have in their businesses and their careers and their executive positions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm loving your questions. I'm loving this conversation. Um, so I'm wondering if someone came to me and said that, right? I would say, where are you forcing or trying to make things happen? Like,
Mm.
if you get the sense that you have an imbalance in your masculine energy, like, what makes you say that, right? So, what would be some things that people would say from what you've noticed?
So what I've noticed is that and I see this more in the online space rather than the in person, but I do see like a lot of women just getting and I saw this a little bit more when I had my social media agency where I just saw people um a lot of women getting using the word competitors, competitiveness, and you know I have actually seen people poaching clients, things like that, because they didn't feel like they were in abundance. They weren't in the state of abundance. They weren't in the state of belief where, you know, there's more than enough for everybody. Like that one client enough. They had that scarcity mindset. You know what I mean? So I would see it and like people would say, "Oh, I mean, I think this is more common with Facebook groups I've seen when I used to do like a lot of done for you social media services where I saw Facebook posts saying, I need a client, I need a client, I need somebody, no, I need somebody that does social media," and like there'll be 60 or 70 people in these comments in the comments section. And you would see like women just almost fighting for each other and almost like doing all of this stuff, and like a lot of these will be women only groups, right? So you would kind of see them, I don't want to say fighting for it, but it did bring out a little bit of a competitive energy in them. And not to say women aren't competitive or shouldn't be competitive, but there is that belief that I have seen in the space. Like I used to know a girl that used to do exactly what I did in that space. I used to know a girl. However, she felt like she got super competitive super quickly she when I just told her when I started commenting on her and like on her posts and everything, and she got really competitive and said, "I don't want to tell you anything else about what I do." or my secret sauce or anything like that. And I'm like, nobody's talking about stealing your secret sauce, or nobody's talking like, and that's the thing. So how does like so for that girl, like how would core transformation like work with her? Because I felt like she clearly had some moons. She blocked me after
Oh,
like on
wow.
that. Yeah. So
Well, here's the thing. Firstly, people need to, I guess, kind of be aware of how their behaviors are making them feel on the inside, right? I'm not
mhm.
saying you have to label your emotions or whatever. I mean, it's helpful, but like, have a little bit of self-awareness of around, I'm building this business in this way where I need to feel like I need to be on top, like I need to be the authority. So I'm basically going to present only a version of myself, a certain version of myself that is like, I don't know, loud or like in your face or like I'll be the first one there, right?
Mm.
If that's not their true nature, which it might be their true nature, and if it is, that's great. But living life from force or trying to be someone that you're not just because you think you need to be that person because other people seem to be getting attention from being that way, that's exhausting and it's not sustainable, and eventually you're going to get some kind of mm, sign from the universe that it's time to slow down, right? Perhaps
Yes.
you're going to be presented with situations where you think that you are perfect, like you are acting exactly the perfect way you need to, you are competitive, you're doing all the things, and yet you're not getting the results that you want. In fact,
Mm.
you might not only be getting the results that you want, you might also be presented with some challenges. Like you do get the clients and then they ask for refunds, or
Correct.
they're like, I don't, this is not what I bought. Like
Yeah.
you are not for real. And that when people can see you, the thing that you're trying to hide, I imagine that's pretty hurtful because you're like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
people are seeing through my shit.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, I mean, I've also I dealt I used to do, I used to be a part of, like, reputation marketing, um, with the Google reviews and the Yelp reviews, helping people, like, get them, helping, all these businesses get them and all that stuff, and it's so funny because I would get calls from these guys. I would get calls from, like, a lot of our medical clients saying, like, with all these long reviews, sometimes we could get them down because they had nothing to do with their services. It was, like, personal. Those were kind of fun. Those are kind of fun to deal with because, like, it almost made you laugh at what these reviews are like. Um, but you would again, like, have somebody as well, like, have a review, but then we couldn't take it down or ask or even Google to take them down, or, Google or Yelp or whatever to take them down because they felt that they were getting pulled because a competitor would write a bad review, right? Or something would happen like that. I always found that that was interesting. When I saw something like that, I always found that it was super super interesting because these guys, they were so worried about how they would look like instead of how they would look like to the rest of the world instead of actually focusing on their bedside manner and their like serve and their whole like service and how friendly they were to people, which are things that were common to see in some of these reviews. So yeah, no, to your point, like, yeah, like, taking a look and having that self-awareness, I think is also key as well.
Right, right. And so once they have that self-awareness and they do come to the conclusion that like, "Oh, not being me is exhausting. Oh, having these like external circumstances prove to me that like or not show me that something is not aligned here, right? Because all of these things that are happening, bad reviews, whatever, people getting refunds, they're not like punishments for you being a bad person. They are lessons. They are opportunities for you to be like, what is not aligned? because I don't think the universe wants us to just suffer. So
Yes.
what can we learn from this? And if they come to that conclusion, then they can come to me and be like, Alina, I think that I've been forcing, I think I have a subconscious belief that I need to constantly force, and that I need to like, that I can't play with people, and that I need to be competitive, and that I have to show this version of myself that is not really who I am. And I don't really know who I am. How do I discover that? That would be like, that would be
Oh,
wonderful. I'd be like, yes, let's do this. So,
yeah, yeah. Not being aligned. You brought up something about not being aligned to your to those beliefs, which yeah, that is what makes people go into those super competitive modes, super competitive I guess super competitive mindsets, I would say.
yeah, yeah,
And these like these super mindset of being, I need to be the only one out here. And we're not talking about just competitiveness, we're talking about the entire sacral here, which is all about ego. That plays into the ego as well, that plays into, you know, divine feminine. So if you needed to balance that going into receiving, into the sacral, right, sacral receiving energy for the divine feminine, and having that come naturally to you, and being super aligned with who you are, and really asking yourself, this does this feel good in my body? Does this feel good in my body? Does this feel good in my soul? Does this feel good with what I'm doing? Because if it doesn't, I probably need to do something different,
yeah.
you know?
I think for a lot of us, like 2020 forward has presented plenty of opportunity for us to like take a break and reevaluate what's best
Yes.
for us. And I'm noticing that for the folks who have decided basically like I'm going to change nothing, they're getting larger signs of like things not being aligned, right? It's like first you get a little pebble being thrown at you, and it's like, ah, stop it, that's annoying, I'm just gonna ignore you. And then there's like a little tap, and then there's like a brick to the face, and then there's like a Mack truck.
Yeah. I always call that the, like, the voice that gets louder. The
Uh-huh.
voice that starts with a whisper, but then it gets louder. I mean, I'm clairaudient, which if you don't know what clairaudience is, it's like you hear voices, you hear things, you hear spirit. So I had a voice tell me to go into, you know, spiritual coaching
Mm.
a long time ago. Like around 4 or 5 years ago, I had that. And 2020 came, the voice started to get a little bit louder. 2021, that voice became like almost a scream. And that led me into business chakras and what I'm doing right now. Um, and then, you know, it led me into what is now the program I have right now. So, like, when you don't pay attention to like the signs and everything, you are going to be in misalignment. You're going to be in misalignment. It's almost like getting like a chiropractor and you have to have somebody else to like, you know, click you back in place.
And that's the thing is like this misalignment is usually not an ambiguous thing. It kind of sounds like it. Maybe it sounds like a spiritual community term,
Mhm.
but you probably know that you're not in alignment if like what you're saying, right? It doesn't feel good in your body. You have this like feeling of unease, or just like you're not fulfilled in some way, or something is missing, or like deep in your heart that you're not being who you actually are. You're putting on a mask or a show because you think you need to be a certain way. Perhaps you have a mystery dis-ease, right? Like
Mm.
mystery pain or something like that, that all the doctors are like, this is stress related. Where's the stress coming from?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's no, like where is the stress coming from? Where is this? And stress, and here's another thought. Like there are things that like science has already like started to prove that stress does it takes place in different parts of the body. It manifests in different parts of the body. Like when you talk about different parts, does stress end up showing in those parts of like the body that where they would have pain and things like that?
If it does, it's coincidental maybe. Like the method that I use is not like, oh yeah, you'll probably find that part of you that's stressed in your hips or something like that, or where we
Mhm.
usually somatically maybe carry more stress. Um, Not for core transformation, but sure, it can show up that way.
Oh. Like, I always wondered, like, because I mean, whenever I would see, because of course I'm an intuitive, I can also see somebody's chakras in the bodies and everything. And sometimes when I see a when I see like a dimmed out chakra, um, I can see if somebody's if there is pain in there
Mm,
and if they are carrying stress in there. So but you're right, like like these parts do like come in like you don't, and they're very subconscious. They can come into very different parts in yourself that you just didn't even know that they were in. uh,
exactly.
yeah.
Plus, hence the subconscious word, right? Like sometimes
Hmm.
um, that's usually what happens. Why I love core transformation is like we can just work on the surface level. You come to me and you're like, I'd like to stop scrolling on my phone at night. Great. I don't need to know any more information. I don't need to know when you decided that you wanted to do this or what event in your childhood led to you do it. Like, no, we don't need to know any of that for this method anyway. And then we can just go from there. And as you noticed when we were working together, we started working with that part that, like, I think wanted to scroll or something like that. And then
Yeah.
just also like additional stuff came up, additional parts that maybe you
Yes.
didn't even know were there. Exactly.
Like a mother's love that was like so out of the blue for me. I was just like, what? Like this kind of came, why did this come up? And why did a mother's love come up? Why did comfort come up? Why did all of these things come up? Like I was just asking, I was just like, what? So yeah, it was, I would describe core transformation as that session as like, it was almost a cross between meditation. It was like that in between stage between hypnosis and some of the deeper meditations I do. I actually think it might have been closer to the deeper meditation things that I do more than hypnosis. Um, and I think I was telling you this at the end of our session that by the end, I felt like this was a lighter version of a QHHT session that I did back in
Mm,
November. But you guys don't know, QHHT is quantum healing hypnosis therapy. And that's a technique developed by Dolores Cannon. And you go into your past lives and you can ask your higher self on of all different timelines what you really need to do. So, and my session was like 3 hours long, and I didn't even feel like it was 3 hours long. And when you told me that it was like, oh, we have like 10 minutes left, I was like, what? Of our session. So I was just like, what? Like, yeah. So we did. That's how I knew we kind of went a little bit deep, but that's how I felt in my QHHT session. It was like, I was like, wait a minute. It's all because I remember seeing it was like 2 or something. It was 2 o'clock. I did that QHHT session with that woman, and my God, it was incredible. I was like, holy crap. Like I remember like I think almost a different voice almost wanted to come out of me.
mm,
A different voice wanted to come out of me, but like it was actually my higher self, but I was speaking more confidently, if that makes sense.
that's cool.
I was speaking so much more confidently, and I was speaking like, I don't know, I was speaking more confidently, and like my higher self like came out. And yeah, I'm gonna do a separate video about my QHHT session that I had, but it was wild. But it did remind me of what we did in our session together, which was this, I was like, oh wow, we went in deep, and I have to tell you, I think I was wiped out by the end. I don't think I did anything. I think I drank a lot of water.
Yeah.
um but it was, no, it was fabulous. It was fabulous. And like, I did feel lighter coming out of that. I did feel like I uncovered something, and I did feel like there was something that I triggered within myself where I was like, okay, I can. And you definitely pointed out that, and you pointed out before that, you know, you might not see like an actual change just yet, but as I was scrolling, I did think of, I should be spending my time somewhere else, or I should be like going to bed right now. Which is what I did. I ended up like turning down the phone and going to bed. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Yeah, I love subconscious change work. Core transformation has just been my most favorite method so far, but like I love it for multiple reasons. You know, as you mentioned, it feels very relaxing. Um, Physiologically, it puts your body, it rests, it puts your nervous system into the stress and digest mode, which is the mode where your body can self heal. It's the mode where your body can rest, self regenerate, um, make connections. It's the same kind of mode where you are sleeping, right?
Yes.
Things are they're healing, they're connecting. That's if you do nothing else, that is one major reason for engaging in stuff like subconscious work, meditation, these kinds of things. And for core transformation, it actually creates subconscious rewiring. So, like these connections that you made in your childhood or whatever, sometime in the past in your life, you can rewire those connections to where now, when something happens, like I don't know, for me with the money, right? I made a connection that financial independence meant my permission to exist in the world. Like that is no longer a connection that I have, right? It is that has been dissolved. And I can choose something different now. I can choose to receive more. I can choose to be more present and like, I don't know, not be so focused on this thing, right? Because it was so important in my subconscious mind. And for you, um, you know, you just had the one session, but like you
Yeah.
used to have a connection in your subconscious that the phone somehow meant like, I don't know, comfort or like something else. And now
Yeah,
you kind of
comfort,
have
a mother's
loosened
love. Yeah.
you've loosened that connection.
Yeah,
So
that was like crazy to me. I was just like, wow, like and of course, like when I found a mother's love, like when I found like that, I was just like, wow. So, and my mom, like, she passed away. If you didn't know already, she passed away like 2013.
mm,
So I was like, this is actually kind of crazy that I'm seeing like a mother's love in that shows up in this because yeah, because what do you hear before you go to sleep? I mean, when I was a child, of course, my mom used to sing lullabies and all that stuff to me. She would sing it, and I think she sang them up until I was like 5 or 6 or something like that. And I guess my subconscious mind wanted to hear some of that, but the only
mm,
way to do that for me is to just like put like music on before I go to sleep or whatever, or put like or just scroll and scroll and scroll to feel some sort of subconscious effort. Like I just thought that
mhm.
was interesting, you know, like that all like came up, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like how am I getting all of this stuff? Like coming up. Like I didn't think it was gonna get so deep like that. For
It's commonly surprising. It's like, "I think I'm doing this because of that. Oh, no. Wow, I'm actually doing it because of this. Wow, I did not consider that." Well, because you wouldn't. Like, it's not something that you think through. It's not a logical process, right? You were in this meditative state that you didn't have to try hard to get into. You just kind of closed your eyes and went inside, right? And
Mhm.
then, like, as you began to ask this part of you these questions, you just kind of got answers. And these answers are not something that you think through. It's not like, well, before it said I wanted comfort, then logically that means I want to be safe. Like that,
Mhm.
the answers are not always logical. I mean, yeah.
The answers aren't always logical. You're so right. So I know we have just a few minutes left, but can you explain how you work with things like, okay, a relationship? How does core transformation help with close relationships? If somebody wants to fix like a close relationship with their parent or their husband or their, children even. Like, how does that help in regards to that?
That's a great question. I mean, my first question to my clients is always like, what is manifesting in your life? Right? So you're
Mhm.
coming to me because you want to improve your relationship or the closeness that you have with somebody. What do you see is preventing you from having that? So of course we can't change other people, right? We can't force change, but we can change things within ourselves. And sometimes when we change things within ourselves, that influences other people to change, right? Like if you, for example, have a difficult relationship with one of your parents and you want to change that, what what's creating the block here, right? What do you notice? Maybe you fight, right? So
Mhm.
the parent says something critical. Let's just have an example because this is like prominent for me, right?
Yeah.
The parent says something critical, and then you are like, no, that's not okay. And you get defensive. You feel like this, I don't know, sense of like, I need to yell and protect myself and like, I don't know, say something back that's nasty. And then this ends up being in a fight or something like that. So, okay, we can't change your parents. Uh,
Right.
they can still be critical, but what can you do, right? I can maintain um, a more present emotional state instead of being reactive and just saying something, yelling or saying something nasty back. I can maintain composure and I could say, mom, dad, whatever, that was hurtful. And how can we have nonviolent communication here? They might decide to not engage in that, and that's fine. But at least you're able to kind of.
It's about controlling the reaction, right? Controlling your reaction rather than theirs.
Right.
And
Right.
I always say anxiety forms when you feel like you can control something you can't control.
Mm,
That's when anxiety forms. And a lot of anxiety does form within what you just said, you thinking that you think you can control the other person or thinking you can control the other situation when all you can control is what you do and yourself and your being, and everything. And once you have that awareness, and yeah, having that relationship fixed, and like, you can be happy, you can do all that one, you can feel so much lighter. And especially when you go with Alina, you will feel so much lighter in these sessions, because I could tell you, I just felt like, I mean, when I came out, I did feel a little bit lethargic because like I just didn't want to do anything, but I did notice later that night I felt like a lot lighter. I felt a
mhm.
lot more, I would say a lot more steady. And I think the next day, I definitely felt like there was a weight, like kind of something shifted. It
Yeah.
definitely shifted for sure.
That's a common a common result of this work. And
Yeah.
so yeah, like, you know, if you can become aware of what you'd like to change, back to just the relationship part, it's like, okay, so I notice that I get really reactive. I want to change that part of me that gets reactive. That's what we can bring into the session. There's also additional things that I won't get into because time, but like there's
Yeah.
additional aspects, additional little processes I can guide someone through specifically for relationships and communication that can really help. But really, it's like if we're not listening to each other, we're not coming to each other from a place of love, um, or ability to like hear each other, it becomes really challenging to create intimate, close relationships because you're, like you said, either trying to control and be correct all the time or, be a certain way all the time. And they're like defending themselves because they don't want to be controlled, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah. It seems like you and I had very similar experiences with our parents for sure growing up. Because yeah, you're saying like a lot of things that are very much resonating with me. But yeah, like realizing that the other person, they're just seeing things from you're seeing things from your point of view, they're seeing from things from their point of view. But all you can do is literally just change your reaction to things and not and like expect them and don't expect them to change like their reaction, but you can control your reaction how you are.
yeah.
So
And that can
yeah.
create space for maybe change in your relationship because especially like learning nonviolent communication tactics as well can be really helpful. And sometimes the people don't want to change. And then you need to set a boundary for yourself so that you're not constantly entering into situations that are not safe for you. Like an abusive person, you can set as many boundaries as you want with them. They will likely continuously break them. And at that point, you need to know what you need to do for yourself to like exit the situation, right? Because that person is not going to change. So
Yeah.
you can have the strongest like nerves of steel and have the best communication tools, and some people just will not budge.
Yeah, some people won't budge, and like I mean that's when I say maybe it might be time to walk away from
Mhm.
that person, that relationship, that situation, that place, thing, whatever. It might, if something's is not going to change the environment or whatever because it's too toxic, it will be time to walk away. There's like a lot of times I walked away from things too that I was like, I don't know what this is going to do, but I know that I'm going to be much more at peace if I just walk away from this. And
Exactly.
it can be hard, it can be difficult because some things like bring you security, like a job will bring you security, a job will bring you security, it'll bring you financial stability and all of that. But is it worth it when you are getting berated every day? Is it worth it when you are getting abused? Is it worth it when all you go into, all the things that you go into work, you can't please your boss, you can't please anybody in there? Or even a relationship, every single day might feel like going into battle with
Mhm.
your partner or your
Walking on eggshells or
yeah, walking on eggshells. It might be walking on eggshells. It might be. So, is it really worth it at the end of the day? Is your happiness worth it? So,
I think
that's like,
also, like, this can create an opportunity for deep healing for, all parties involved, like, I used to be someone that mm, I used to be someone that avoided conflict, and I would say, like,
mm,
my relationship with my husband, like, I was able to feel safe enough to bring up stuff to him that would, like, normally I would just be like, "No, it's fine. I'll
mm,
just not say anything." But he taught me how when I open my heart and I'm able to communicate non-violently, how that can create actually a deeper connection and healing, like a lot of healing. So, it can go
yeah.
one way or the other.
Vulnerability, that's also sacral. Vulnerability, authenticity, those are things that are also deal with the sacral quite a bit. And I also think that deals with solar plexus too. Vulnerability as well
Mm,
deals with the solar plexus and how confident you are with being
your
authentic
throat.
and yeah, confident in the throat as well and speaking up for what you want as well. So, and speaking from your heart, that's heart chakra too. Speaking with your heart and your passion and soul. Passion and soul like also come with that's heart and soul, that's heart and sacral. So, when you manifest these things and you can create when you manifest your best relationship or your best money and your best life, living your best life, it's all about these subconscious beliefs and that you have within yourself. And in order to transform them, you would need like you would need to transform them, be aware, and need somebody like Alina to to come and help you with that. So where can we find you, Alina?
Yeah. So you can find me on my website at alinanikishina.com. And also I'm on Instagram primarily at Hey Alina N. I'd like to get better about posting some stuff, but I'm on there.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And of course, y'all can find me at Supriya.digital everywhere, pretty much everywhere. LinkedIn, well, not on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just Supriya Prasad, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, yeah, all those places. I'm Supriya.digital. And I'm on Supriya.digital at Clapper too. So that's a new TikTok channel, just and that's I think that's a platform just in case it gets banned in the United States.
That's good to
So
know.
yeah, so get Clapper if you are worried about a ban. Anyway, so yeah, thank you so much, Alina, for all of this. You've been
Yeah.
wonderful.
No, thank
And
you.
yeah, if you guys want to learn more, check her out on socials. I did put it all in the description, all of her contact information in the description. So if you ever want to, if you ever want to contact her, contact me, feel free to do that. Thank you guys so much. And of course, have a manifesting day. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
All